1.1 U.S.-Japan Relations Tension. Before the attack on Pearl Harbor, relations between the United States and Japan had become severely strained. In the 1930s, Japan had expanded its territory by invading China and establishing control over many strategic areas in Asia and the Pacific. These actions were strongly opposed by the United States, which had economic and strategic interests in the region. In response, the United States imposed economic sanctions on Japan, including an embargo on oil and other important resources. This seriously threatened Japan's ability to wage war and expand its territory. Faced with this situation, Japanese leaders realized that if they did not act immediately, their country would be in a difficult position. Therefore, they decided to launch a preemptive strike against the United States naval forces in the Pacific to gain an advantage. 1.2 Japanese Attack Plan. The plan to attack Pearl Harbor was drawn up by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Japanese Navy, with the hope of crippling the U.S. Pacific Fleet, allowing Japan to expand its influence in Southeast Asia. The campaign, codenamed Operation Z, was based on a surprise attack on the naval base in Hawaii, where many U.S. battleships and warships were concentrated. To carry out this plan, a large fleet consisting of 6 aircraft carriers, carrying more than 400 fighter planes, secretly approached Hawaii. This force included bombers, torpedo bombers, and fighters, which were well trained to attack targets at Pearl Harbor. 2. The course of the attack. 2.1 The fateful hours. In the early morning of December 7, 1941, 6 Japanese aircraft carriers under the command of Vice Admiral Chuchi Nagumo approached Pearl Harbor. The first attack began at 7:48 a.m., with 183 aircraft taking off. The force quickly split into groups to attack different targets: battleships, cruisers, and military airfields. 2.1.1 Attack on the battleships. The main Japanese targets were the battleships anchored in the Battleship Row area. Of the 8 battleships present at Pearl Harbor, the USS Arizona was the ship that suffered the most damage. An 800 kilograms bomb penetrated the deck and exploded in the ammunition magazine, causing a terrible explosion that killed more than 1,100 sailors. The ship sank immediately and became a symbol of the tragedy at Pearl Harbor. USS Oklahoma was also hit by multiple torpedoes and capsized, killing 429 sailors. Other battleships such as USS West Virginia, USS California, and USS Nevada were also severely damaged. Despite the fierce attack, the U.S. aircraft carriers, the main targets of the Japanese, were not present at Pearl Harbor at the time and escaped the attack. 2.1.2 Attack on military airfields. At the same time as attacking the battleships, Japanese aircraft also simultaneously attacked military airfields in Hawaii, including Hickam Field, Wheeler Field, and Kaneohe Bay. Dozens of U.S. aircraft were destroyed on the ground, almost completely neutralizing the U.S. Air Force in the first phase of the attack. 2.2 Second wave of attacks. About an hour later, the second wave of attacks, consisting of 170 aircraft, continued to attack the remaining targets. Although not as devastating as the first wave, this attack still destroyed many more American warships and military infrastructure. In total, 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 1 anti-submarine ship were sunk or severely damaged. 2.3 Losses of the United States. The attack on Pearl Harbor caused heavy losses to the United States. In total, 2,403 people died, 1,178 were wounded, and more than 300 aircraft were destroyed or damaged. Of the 8 battleships attacked, 4 were sunk, and the rest were damaged. However, the American aircraft carriers, which were the main targets of the Japanese, were not present at Pearl Harbor at the time and were not damaged. 3. Aftermath of the attack. 3.1 Changes in the psychology and politics of the United States. The attack on Pearl Harbor caused a strong shock to the American people. Before that, America was still divided in its views on entering World War II, with many people advocating isolationism and avoiding intervention in conflicts in Europe and Asia. However, the attack completely changed the attitude of the people. On December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared before Congress that December 7th was a day that will live in infamy, and called for a declaration of war against Japan. This call received absolute support, and the United States officially entered the war. This event also motivated the United States to mobilize all its economic, military, and technological power for the war. Thank you for watching the whole video. If you find it interesting, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel.